2 days ago, I was lucky enough to play Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and I need to thank EA for letting me participate in that event. I'm going to tell you my impressions of what I played, but I'm going to keep things spoiler-free, so don't worry about any of that. Real quick, for a little context of what kind of gamer I am, my absolute favorite games are The Last of Us and the Uncharted series. I love third-person action games with fun, exciting, emotional stories. I'm telling you this so you know I was already excited about the potential Fallen Order had. It seemed like it was right up my alley, and so far from what I've seen and played, it is absolutely meeting my expectations. We were dropped into the story fairly early on, I think on the third planet you get to explore called Zepho. So Cal's got one force power, BD1, and his lightsaber. That's it. He's not fully loaded and powerful yet. We were told before playing that this game is about becoming a Jedi, so we get to go on that journey as Cal kind of rediscovers his connection to the Force and then grows beyond where he was as a Padawan. Which is helpful because I would not call this game easy. There are 4 difficulty levels from just story mode, which will allow you to breeze through combat and just experience the story, or you can ramp it up to Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, or Jedi Grandmaster. I played on Jedi Knight, which is normal difficulty. You can change difficulties on the fly if the game is too easy or too hard, so that's a very welcome feature for me. But back to Cal and the Force, something I was curious about was how the Force and leveling up would be handled. There's been a lot of talk recently about how older Star Wars video games have kind of skewed the perception of how the Force works. I'm not saying any of those games were wrong to do that, they're games. But the Force isn't about leveling up, and I think Lucasfilm has been very careful about how they've gone about presenting the Force ever since the canon reset. It's about being one with yourself, having control over your feelings. It's about belief. I only unlocked one new Force ability with Cal, and I thought it was handled in a very unique way that made sense. It's not like Cal had to do Force push-ups to learn it. He didn't gain enough experience to access some new ability. He's simply remembering the lessons he was forced to forget in order to survive after Order 66. There is a skill tree that will open up new combos, more health, extra force meter, and those kinds of things, so there still is a level of gamification of the Force, but I found it to be a really nice and unexpected balance. The skill tree is for minor changes to Cal's repertoire of moves, but relearning how to connect with the Force is how players unlock the major stuff. The gameplay is a lot of fun. Most things feel challenging but not impossible. There are a lot of buttons to remember even early on, so I found myself trying to block with the wrong button, for example, when things got really intense. But overall, the combat feels good. I've said before I wanted to feel like I was barely scraping by because Cal is a Padawan and he shouldn't be cutting through enemies like butter. I think I could have bumped the difficulty up a level, but even on Jedi Knight difficulty, I didn't think every encounter was easy. You can very quickly become overwhelmed if you're not conscious about your decisions. Combat could feel a little repetitive at times, especially when you have just 3 scout troopers to fight or something like that, and I found myself sliding into this simple block and counter rhythm, just using the same 2 buttons over and over. That said, it's still pretty satisfying to pull that stuff off, and every planet you visit means new enemies thanks to whatever local creatures or beings are around. On Zepho, just when I was starting to feel a little bored by the combat, a new enemy would be introduced, and a lot of those new enemies came with new attacks, new counters, new kill animations if you can pull them off, and I won't get into specifics, but I think the people who were hoping for dismemberment will be pleased. So far it seems like that's limited to droids and non-sentient creatures, but still there were plenty of moments that caught me by surprise the first time I saw them. The biggest downside I can think of for the combat was that I wish that there was some sort of stealth element. There were plenty of times where I was behind stormtroopers and I just didn't see a good way to get the jump on them. I love that you can avoid big gunfights in Uncharted or The Last of Us if you're good at taking people down one by one. I just wish there were a better approach to starting a fight in Fallen Order besides just running in, screaming with your lightsaber on. Maybe that's part of the skill tree down the line, I don't know. Controls for the platforming sections usually felt pretty good. Wall running could be difficult at times, so I had some issues there, but it's just something that takes practice. What I love about the platforming are those moments where you're close to pulling something off and then you finally get it and you just relax and you had no idea how tense you were. I felt that a lot. I think the mark of a good platformer is being able to see how something is done, knowing it's possible, but it's just a challenge. Again, I thought there was a good balance there between fairly simple jumps and some that needed a good deal of timing that'll make every muscle in your body tense up. I mentioned loving the Uncharted series, and you probably know I love Indiana Jones. I'm a huge sucker for exploring ruins and solving puzzles to get to the prize at the end. And at least Zepho was very much centered around that idea. I loved it. Once you get into the temple side of things, you get to solve all this stuff, but of course, these temples are different from something you'd see in Uncharted or Indy, because Nathan Drake and Indiana Jones can't use the Force. That opens up so many new creative ways to solve problems. If things get too difficult, BD1 will offer you hints because he's like an exploration droid. I'm the kind of person that yells at the game about how I don't need help because I'd rather struggle for 20 minutes to realize I missed something obvious than let a puzzle outsmart me, but the option is there if you are a more reasonable person than I am. And this temple we were in was huge. I probably spent 2 hours in that level, and I kind of forced myself to leave so I could see 2 other planets, Dathomir and Kashyyyk. Basically, I went down into that temple, relearned an ability, and then that opened up a bunch of new branches of the temple that I could now explore. It's very Metroid in that way. There are places that you'll pass by and you just know you won't be able to get there until later on when you've got more abilities unlocked. So you'll go to another planet and then revisit those spots later on. What's nice is you can see all the planet maps from your ship, so if you're deciding where you want to revisit, you'll be able to easily see that you can now access some previously unreachable area. Pathways you won't be able to open yet are marked red, but newly reachable areas that you haven't seen yet are marked green. So it's not like you have to go and re-explore a whole planet only to find out you still don't have what you need. It's very user-friendly in that way. And exploring is a huge part of this game. There are so many things to unlock or scan or learn about. BD1 can scan enemies and lore about each planet, so the trivia fiend in me is going to get a lot from this game. You'll get to learn about new and familiar cultures, planets, and creatures if you're into that sort of thing. You can discover new cosmetics for your lightsaber, Cal, BD1, and your ship. Fully exploring every level and 100%ing this game is gonna take some time. I said before I forced myself to leave and check out other places, right? Well, Azatru was playing next to me and he didn't leave Zepho the entire time. I saw him exploring locations I didn't even know I could reach. He spent 3 hours on that planet and didn't come close to finding everything. Think about that. He could have nearly beaten the Battlefront 2 campaign in the time that he spent exploring one planet, and he wasn't even close to being done. So I don't know how many planets are in the final game, but if every planet is that big, this should be nice and long. I'm sure you could speedrun through it on the easiest difficulty, but I don't think people are going to want to do that. Exploring and scanning and collecting things was so rewarding to me. I can see myself trying to 100% this game. I will probably try to get through the story quickly just so I can cover it for the channel, but then I'll go back and take my time and just enjoy it. I should also mention how not linear this game is. Each planet kind of guides you in a direction, but there are multiple avenues to choose from. More than that, as long as you can get to your ship, you can go to any planet that you've unlocked at any time. So if you want to go get wailed on at Dathomir early on in the game, you are free to do that. Or if you'd prefer to do everything you possibly can on a planet before leaving, you can do that instead. There are a lot of options for the player. I did find myself getting lost at one point on Zepho where the game didn't really make it clear how I was supposed to get past this one obstacle, but I think that's because there's a mechanic that would have been introduced to me through the game's tutorial at the start, and we didn't get to play that. The map is very helpful, and you'll probably need to rely on it a lot. Finally, I just want to touch on the story. It's hard to say a lot about it because we were dropped early in the game but not at the beginning, and obviously I don't know how it ends. I don't have a ton of context, but from what I've seen so far, I'm really into it. And I just want to give you my impression of the characters, because really, if they don't work, the story doesn't. So far, I'm really into them as well. Cal is likable and charming and relatable. Cere is really intriguing, and I won't say why, but there were some things with her I wasn't expecting. Grease, the pilot, is funny. We all know BD1 is a treasure who I will protect at any cost. And even the Imperials, brief though their lives may be, have some good lines that I found to be kind of endearing. Like they'll be surprised if they hit you, and they'll be proud of themselves for the last 2 seconds of their lives. I didn't get to see the second sister at all, but we did get to see some gameplay with the ninth sister, and I liked her as an enemy a lot. She fits in with her Darth Vader comic introduction very well. And speaking of comics, I doubt you'll be lost at all if you don't read the Fallen Order Dark Temple comic tie-in, but with what little I played, I can already tell that I'm glad I've started reading it. There are some strong connections, and I mean they're much stronger than I was expecting. If you're a canon junkie like me, I think you'll feel very pleased and rewarded if you read it before the game comes out. But I think that's all I have to say. So far, I've been very impressed. The game is a lot of fun to play, exploring is rewarding and exciting, combat is challenging but satisfying, and the story is intriguing and unique. I don't think we've seen this kind of story in a Star Wars video game before. I'm obviously honored that I got to play some of it early, but I think it's kind of cruel that I now have to wait a month to see how it ends. I want to know. I want to explore more. This game is almost exactly what I was hoping it would be, and I can't wait to experience the full story on November 15th. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments and I'll try to reply, or maybe I'll do a video on them, as long as the answers aren't too spoilery. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.